We need to make sure that Canada's success is not dependent on decisions made elsewhere.
Canada's Prime Minister walked up to a podium and, in less than an hour, quietly took apart 4 years of American strategy. No shouting, no theatrics, no personal attacks, just numbers, history, and a calm declaration that landed like a closing door. Canada made a historic move today, he said, and then he followed it with the sentence no one expected to hear from a Canadian leader. We are done asking for your permission. For decades, commentators treated Donald Trump's chaos as a kind of genius. The tariff threats, the midnight policy shifts, the America First shock tactics, all supposedly clever ways to keep allies off balance and compliant. Today, Mark Carney stood in front of the cameras and announced that the game is over, not because Trump changed, because Canada did. Most people assumed the unpredictability gave Trump leverage. Markets flinched whenever he tweeted. Washington insiders whispered that his volatility was a negotiating weapon. Analysts predicted that Canada, tied so tightly to the U.S. economy, would have no choice but to bend. They were wrong. What unfolded in that press conference will be studied not as a budget technicality, but as the moment a smaller country looked at a superpower and said calmly, "We don't need you the way we used to." The setting was ordinary. Ottawa, a budget announcement. But within minutes, it was clear this wasn't just about fiscal tables. It was a declaration of economic independence disguised as a fiscal plan. Carney opened with a simple phrase, "It's official," delivered with the steady tone of someone who knows exactly what he's doing. Then he said the line that broke the old frame, "Canada's future is no longer tethered to Washington's choices." Canadian prime ministers don't usually talk like that. They hedge. They talk about partnership, about shared prosperity, about deep integration. They avoid direct lines that might irritate the White House. Carney did the opposite. He drew a bright, unmistakable boundary and dared Washington to adjust. He'd been laying the groundwork for months. Every tariff threat out of Trump's administration, every erratic trade move, every shot at Canadian exports, Carney treated them as evidence. Evidence that dependence on U.S. policy was not stability, but fragility. Today, he finally said it out loud. The risk isn't walking away from the old model. The risk is staying chained to it. While Trump's team thought they were playing three-dimensional chess with tariffs, Carney quietly set up a different board. He didn't try to outbluff Washington on trade. He moved the contest somewhere else entirely, into domestic capability. At the center of that shift is something called Build Canada Homes.
Third, Build Canada Homes will partner with private sector developers to build affordable homes for the Canadian middle class.
On the surface, it's a housing plan, a federal vehicle that uses public land, large-scale project pipelines, and new financing tools to create a factory-built housing industry. Carney reeled off the metrics, cut construction time in half, reduce costs by 20%, lower emissions by another 20%. But the real story isn't the efficiency gains. It's what they replace. For decades, Canada waited for capital, materials, and direction to flow from south of the border. U.S. developers, U.S. supply chains, U.S. financing norms. Build Canada Homes flips that logic. It creates a domestic industry that doesn't depend on American inputs to function. The signal couldn't be clearer. We'll fix our housing crisis using our own land, our own factories, our own capital structures. And if Washington wants to play games with lumber or steel, the impact will be smaller every year. Carney anchored this shift in history. He reminded Canadians that this is not the first time the country has had to build without relying on American blessing. He invoked indigenous traders and voyagers who stitched together trade networks from ocean to ocean before the United States had even pushed past St. Louis. It sounded like a history lesson, but it was really a correction. Canada didn't appear as America's sidekick. It built its own systems long before the modern U.S. economy existed. That memory, Carney implied, can be lived again. Then came the structural move that turned Trump's tariff threats into background noise, a buy Canadian regime hardwired into federal spending,